8年の時を超えて新シリーズに突入だ。ドラゴンボールスーパー7月放送開始。みんな俺たちの新しい戦いをずっと見てくれよな。
Since Dragon Ball Super is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year, I want to do something special. I'm going to do a series of videos. And when I had to think about what to do the series on, Dragon Ball Super is unique. It's unique in the fact that the manga and the anime are different, yes, but it's not like the manga and the anime in the original series. In the original Toriyama series, the manga is Toriyama's story. The anime was just an adaptation of his story, and therefore it's not considered what really happens. Any of those extra characters or extra changes are not the real story. Dragon Ball Super is not the same deal. Toriyama did not write either of them. He wrote the story. When I say write the story, that's very loose. He made the story, and writers wrote an adaptation of his story. So what happens is all of them are considered canon, which is weird because the anime especially has a lot of weird stuff in it, and especially a lot of filler stuff, but it's all considered canon. So therefore it becomes a mess of what exactly is considered canon. Therefore I'm making a video so that we can take a look into why all these iterations of these stories are good and even have some bad, I guess you could say. So we're going to kind of take a look at the good and the bad of all the iterations of these stories. Now I'm only focusing on what appeared in the Dragon Ball Super TV anime, because that's what's actually celebrating its anniversary, as well as the manga. The films are a different story. The first episode will be next week, and the first episode will talk about, of course, Kami to Kami, Battle of Gods. It was a Dragon Ball Z film, actually, not even Dragon Ball Super. It was then adapted into the manga and the anime. What that means is we have 3 versions of the same story, and they are all different, which is so confusing because there are some minor differences which you can overlook, but then there are some major differences that are not even the same thing, which is why I was hinting that Toriyama didn't actually sit down and write everything down on paper. It's more that he said, this happens, this happens, this happens, and then you have 3 sets of writers telling that story from their point of view. Frieza, Fukatsu no F or Resurrection F, it only happens in the movie and the TV anime. There is no manga. It is glossed over in the manga. So I'm not going to be covering that in this series, but I think it would be something fun to do down the road, the movie versus the TV anime. Following that, of course, would be the Broly movie. Guess what? It's skipped over in the manga as well. I don't know why. So you only have the movie currently existing for that. It was never adapted in the TV anime either. Finally, you get Superhero. Superhero was adapted in the manga and has some differences that will be very much kind of like the Frieza movies, only in the anime and the movie. The Superhero is only in the movie and the manga. So these are kind of things that are, in my opinion, they're just like something separate. So we're just going to cover, they're going to be 4 episodes. We're going to cover, of course, the Bidousu story, Universe 6 versus 7, the Future Trunks story, and the Universal Survival arc. Those are the 4 main arcs I'll be covering, as they were covered in both the TV anime as well as the manga. If we really want to think about it, it's best to use Akira Toriyama's words. He himself said that when the 2 first films came out, Dragon Ball Z, Kami to Kami, Fukatsu no F, that he basically just helped out with the story. He really didn't do much. And some character design stuff, especially Bidousu and Whis. He came up with those designs. Bidousu based on his cat at the time. So when you get to the anime and the manga, he really doesn't say how much involvement he has. He says, yeah, I help out with the story. Okay, but he doesn't say how much. Not until we get to the Broly movie. When you get to the Broly movie, I remember the whole advertisements for it here in Japan. He was basically coming out saying, this is the most I've been involved in Dragon Ball in ages. So I was like, okay, so that means he's telling me that Dragon Ball Super, the manga, anime, all stuff, he wasn't that involved in. The Broly movie was his first time getting really involved in it, and with the story, character designs, everything. So he had a lot of hand in that. Then fast forward a few years into superhero, and then he puts out the statement saying, this is even more so. Like he said himself, he was heavily involved in the story, all the beats that happened in the story, the transformations, all that stuff. So Toriyama himself is saying that, like, by the time you get to superhero, then he was like really into it. Now fast forward all the way to Daima, and now that's when Toriyama came out and said, this is even more so, I'm involved in it. So what I take away from that is, of the versions I talked about of the stories, how much involvement he has, I truly believe it's the following. He came up with the story, the characters, all that stuff. So he's like, you're going to have Goku Black, you're going to have, Zamasu, you're going to have all this stuff happening. We need, Vegeto's going to make a comeback, and then they're going to, find a way to beat him. But it won't fully beat him. So, then Zen-chan, he'll come in and just wipe everything clean. He comes up with all like the important stuff, the stuff that needs to happen in the story. In between there, that's up to the writers to fill in. That's why in the TV anime, Goku and Vegeta go there, Super Saiyan Blue, and they do the best they can. Vegeta, trains as hard as he can to get stronger. Cool. In the manga version, you have the similar beats as the anime. Okay, they need to stop Goku Black. Vegeta trains, gets stronger, but this time he decides to go Super Saiyan God, not Blue. So there are these like minor differences happening that they don't shake the whole story, because when we get to the end of the story, the same things happen. But when we go through the series, you're going to see there are a lot of differences that make you go, wait, what? Like, here's a big one, a little spoiler alert. Goku does not use Kaioken with Super Saiyan Blue until the Universal Survival arc in the manga. Whereas way early on in the Universe 6 versus 7 against Hit, he busts it out. So it's like there are some differences that just make you go, whoa, like some big differences. So I'm really looking forward to this series, guys. I really want you to take away from this series is that Dragon Ball Super has a lot of criticisms from fans, and most of those criticisms come from the fact that they only know one version of the story. They know the TV anime. And I know you could say, well, that's the same with Dragon Ball Z. Most fans only know Dragon Ball Z, and therefore all the filler shit, they just say, well, Dragon Ball Z is a terrible anime because it's like, it takes so long to get through stuff, because they're not realizing that it's a dragged out version of the story. The Dragon Ball Super anime has a lot of good and bad. The bad being mostly the filler, the dragged out stuff, the extra goofiness to the characters. That's a lot of stuff that's only in the anime. However, the manga isn't perfect either. There are things in the manga that just go, I don't know, the anime handled that a little bit better. So what I'm hoping you take away from this is that you can take pieces from all these adaptations and kind of just fill in your own headcanon, because this was stated, all versions are considered canon. There's nothing that says the TV anime is not canon. They're all considered canon because they were all coming out at the same time. Toriyama was pumping out the story ideas, and you had writers and editors just creating them, and that's what happens. Next week, episode 1 is the most unique in the series, because, as I said before, the Kami to Kami, or Battle of Gods, there are 3 versions of this story. And here's a little hint. All 3 of them have a similar ending, but at the same time different. They're all different at the end. And that's just weird that you're watching the same story, but the ending's different, ending's different. So I think this is going to be a fun series to look at these like creative differences, I guess you could say, for the same story. I hope you guys are looking forward to this series. This is kind of a big deal for me. This is the first major thing I'm doing on this channel, like an episodic series. But don't worry, I'm still doing my usual vids, deep dives, all that stuff, top 10s. The next 2 deep dives are already planned out, ready to go. The next episode for this series, though, the first episode, I should say, is actually dropping the next few days. So please look forward to that. As always, like, subscribe, and share, and see you soon.